There are two competing methods for paying off debt, and personal finance creators have argued about which one is correct for years. One of them is mathematically optimal. The other one is, on paper, mathematically wrong. It costs you more money over time. A peer-reviewed study tracked real people with real debt to see which method actually gets used all the way to the finish line. The wrong one won, and it wasn't close. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why, and the precise rule for which method actually fits your specific debts, because the honest answer isn't always use this one. Part 1. The avalanche method. The debt avalanche method is the one most financial math points to as optimal. Here's how it works. List every debt you have, make minimum payments on all of them, and put every extra dollar toward whichever debt has the highest interest rate, regardless of the balance. Once that debt is gone, you roll its entire payment into the next highest rate debt, and so on, until everything is paid off. The logic is airtight. Interest is the cost of carrying debt, so eliminating the most expensive debt first minimizes the total interest you pay across the entire payoff period. Run the numbers on almost any real set of debts, and Avalanche comes out cheaper, often by hundreds or even low thousands of dollars, depending on the balances and rate spread involved. If this were a pure math problem, the video would end here. It isn't. Part 2. The snowball method. The debt snowball method, popularized largely through Dave Ramsey's work, uses a completely different sorting rule. List every debt, make minimum payments on all of them, and put every extra dollar toward whichever debt has the smallest balance, regardless of its interest rate. Once that smallest debt is fully paid off, you roll its payment into the next smallest balance, building momentum as you go, hence snowball. By interest rate logic, this is frequently the worst choice. If your highest rate debt happens to also be a larger balance, the snowball method has you ignoring it, sometimes for a long time, while you clear smaller, cheaper debts first. Run the math, and snowball typically costs more in total interest than avalanche, sometimes significantly more. So why would anyone recommend it? Part 3. What the research actually found. In 2016, researchers Kyle Kettle, Remy Trudel, Simon Blanchard, and Gerald Heubel published a study in the Journal of Consumer Research that tracked actual consumer debt repayment behavior rather than just modeling it theoretically. Their core finding: people who used a smallest balance first strategy were significantly more likely to actually eliminate all of their debt than people who targeted debt by interest rate. The effect held even though mathematically the interest rate approach should have produced better financial outcomes for anyone who followed it through to completion. The catch is in that last phrase, followed it through to completion. The avalanche method's advantage only exists on paper if a person actually sticks with it for the entire payoff period, which for someone with multiple debts can take years. The snowball method's advantage isn't in the math, it's in the completion rate. A mathematically superior plan that gets abandoned in month 8 produces a worse real-world outcome than a mathematically inferior plan that actually gets finished. This is the part most debt advice skips entirely. A strategy's value isn't just its theoretical efficiency, it's that efficiency multiplied by the probability a real person actually sees it through. Part 4. The mechanism. Why small wins sustain motivation. The psychological explanation traces back to something called the goal gradient hypothesis, first documented experimentally by psychologist Clark Hull in the 1930s and confirmed repeatedly in modern behavioral research. Motivation toward a goal increases as a person gets closer to completing it. And critically, the perception of getting closer matters as much as the actual underlying progress. Paying off an entire account, even a small one, gives a clean, unambiguous signal. That's done. Permanently, it's a completed sub-goal, not just a number that went down. Paying down a portion of a large, high-interest debt produces real progress, but it's diffuse. The account is still open, the balance is still substantial, and there's no clear finish line feeling to draw motivation from. Multiply this across a multi-year payoff plan. The avalanche method, by design, often delays that first "this account is completely gone" feeling the longest because it's prioritizing rate over size. If the highest rate debt also happens to be the largest, a person can go a year or more without a single account closing, all while technically making the mathematically correct choice. The snowball method manufactures that completion signal early and repeatedly, which is precisely the kind of reinforcement multi-year financial behavior change actually depends on. This isn't a knock on willpower, it's the same insight that shows up everywhere in behavior change research. Relying on someone to sustain motivation purely through delayed, abstract rewards, interest saved calculated months from now, is a much harder ask than giving them a concrete, visible win along the way. Part 5. The exact decision rule. Given both the math and the psychology, here's a usable framework rather than a blanket recommendation for one method over the other. Use straight avalanche if the interest rate gap between your debts is large, roughly 10 percentage points or more between your highest and lowest rate debts, and you have a track record of finishing financial plans you start. In that case, the dollar savings are large enough and your follow-through risk is low enough that pure math is the right call. Use straight snowball if your debts have relatively similar interest rates, or the avalanche method wouldn't save much anyway, or if you've previously abandoned a debt payoff plan partway through. In both cases, the completion rate advantage outweighs a marginal interest cost. Use a hybrid approach if you have one debt with a dramatically higher rate, think a high-interest credit card, but it's also one of your larger balances. In this case, list your debts smallest to largest as in snowball, but pull that one high-rate debt to the front of the line regardless of its size, getting the rate optimization benefit of avalanche on the single debt where it matters most, while keeping the small win structure for everything else. Worked example, Jordan has 3 debts. A credit card at $3,200, 24% APR, a personal loan at $8,500, 11% APR, and a car loan at $14,000, 6% APR. Pure avalanche says attack the credit card first, correct on rate, which happens to align with snowball too since it's also the smallest balance, an easy case. But if that same 24% balance had instead been $9,000, larger than the personal loan, the hybrid rule would still say tackle it first regardless, both because of the rate and because high interest balances compound against you the longest if left for last. Part 6. What this doesn't mean. This isn't an argument that math doesn't matter or that interest rates are irrelevant. For someone who has reliably finished what they started in the past, straight avalanche is still the more efficient plan, and there's no psychological tax to pay for using it. The point is narrower and more useful than always do X. The best debt payoff method is the one that accounts for your actual likelihood of finishing it, not just the one that looks best in a spreadsheet. A plan that's 15% less efficient but twice as likely to actually get completed is, in real terms, the better plan. The debt avalanche method isn't wrong, it's optimal. For a version of you that has unlimited motivation and never needs a win along the way. Most people aren't that version of themselves, and the research backs that up. A worse plan, finished, beats a better plan, abandoned. So here's the one action. List out every debt you have right now, with its balance and interest rate side by side, and run it through the decision rule from Part 5. Don't pick a method because it sounds more disciplined. Pick the one that matches how you actually behave. If this changed how you'll approach your own debt, subscribe. Next video breaks down exactly how to automate each method so you're not relying on remembering to make the extra payment every month.